The envelope sat on my kitchen table for 3 hours before I could open it. Victoria's sister, Amanda, had driven all the way from Houston to hand deliver it, her eyes red and swollen. She wouldn't tell me what was inside, just said I needed to read it alone. That was 6 months after the divorce was finalized. 6 months after I thought I'd closed the worst chapter of my life. I had no idea the real nightmare was about to begin. My name is Marcus Brennan. I'm 44 years old, and I run Brennan Landscaping and Design here in Austin, Texas. My dad and I started this company when I was 22, fresh out of community college with a horticulture certificate and a dream that was bigger than our budget. We began with one beat-up pickup truck, a couple of lawn mowers, and enough determination to landscape half of Travis County. 22 years later, we've got 8 trucks, 12 employees, and contracts with some of the nicest residential developments and commercial properties in the area. We design outdoor spaces that make people fall in love with their homes all over again. Patios, irrigation systems, native plant gardens, the whole package. Victoria always handled the finances while I handled the dirt and the designs. She had a degree in accounting from UT Austin, and honestly, she was brilliant with numbers. I couldn't balance a checkbook to save my life, but give me a piece of land and a vision, and I'll create something beautiful. We made a good team, or at least I thought we did. That Tuesday in October started like any other fall day in Central Texas. The weather had finally broken, dropping into the low 70s, and we had 3 major projects going simultaneously. I was at a property in Westlake Hills, supervising the installation of a limestone retaining wall and a native wildflower garden. Beautiful place, almost an acre, with views of the hill country that made you forget you were 15 minutes from downtown. The client was this retired couple who'd saved for years to build their dream home, and they trusted us to make the outdoor space match their vision. I love jobs like that. There's something sacred about being part of someone's dream. I was kneeling in the soil, checking the drainage around a newly planted Texas redbud, when my phone buzzed. Text from my dad, "Call me, now, office." No emoji, no explanation. Dad's 68 and still works 3 days a week, mostly handling estimates and client relations. He's not dramatic. If he says now, he means now. I called him immediately. He answered on the first ring, his voice tight and strange. "Marcus, you need to get back here. Don't tell Victoria you're coming. Just get here." The line went dead. My stomach dropped. In 44 years, I'd never heard that tone from him. Not when Mom died, not when we almost lost the business during the 2008 recession. This was different. This was fear. I told my crew I had an emergency, jumped in my truck, and drove the 20 minutes back to our office in South Austin. The whole way, my mind raced through possibilities. Had something happened to Emma, our 8-year-old daughter? No, she was at school. Was Dad sick? An accident? By the time I pulled into the parking lot, my hands were shaking. Dad was waiting outside, pacing in front of the building we had purchased 5 years ago, a small warehouse converted into office space and equipment storage, our pride and joy. He looked 10 years older than he had that morning. "Inside," he said quietly. "You're going to want to sit down." The security footage was grainy, but clear enough. Our office. After hours, 3 nights prior. Victoria at her desk, the glow of the computer monitor illuminating her face. And a man. Not me. Someone I'd never seen before. Tall, dark hair, expensive-looking jacket. They weren't working. They were kissing. Her hands in his hair, his hands on her waist. Right there in our family business, surrounded by everything we'd built together. I watched it twice before I could speak. Dad stood beside me, one hand on my shoulder, silent. When I finally found words, they came out broken. How long? Dad exhaled slowly. I don't know. I only found this because the motion sensor kept triggering after hours. I thought maybe we had a raccoon problem in the warehouse. I was reviewing the last 2 weeks of footage and he trailed off. We both knew what came next. But that wasn't all. Dad pulled up our QuickBooks account on the second monitor. He'd been doing quarterly reviews, something he'd done since we started the company. A safety net, he called it. 2 sets of eyes on the money. Except this time, the numbers didn't make sense. Look at these transfers, he said, pointing at the screen. Over the past 3 years, there were dozens of payments coded as equipment maintenance and vendor fees. Legitimate sounding, except Dad had cross-referenced them with our actual maintenance records and vendor invoices. They didn't match. The equipment maintenance we'd actually paid for was accurately recorded, but there were duplicate entries, payments to companies that didn't exist, all approved and processed by Victoria. We're talking about $43,000, maybe more. He was still digging. I felt like I was drowning. The woman I'd been married to for 9 years, the mother of my daughter, had been stealing from us. From my father, from the business we'd poured our lives into. And she'd been cheating on me in the place where I'd spent countless late nights dreaming about our future. I drove home in the fog. It was 4 in the afternoon. Emma would still be at school for another hour. Victoria's car was in the driveway. She was probably inside, preparing dinner, like she did every Tuesday, acting like everything was normal. I sat in my truck for 10 minutes, trying to figure out what to say. How do you confront someone about destroying your entire world? When I finally walked in, she was at the kitchen counter, chopping vegetables. She looked up and smiled. That same smile that had made me fall in love with her 13 years ago at a friend's barbecue. "Hey, babe, you're home early. Everything okay?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I kept my voice level. "We need to talk. Emma's not home yet, so now's a good time." Her smile faltered. She knew. I could see it in her eyes. She put down the knife. "Okay." I told her I knew about the man, about the money. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just laid it out, fact by fact, watching her face crumble. At first, she denied it, said the footage must be wrong, that the financial discrepancies were mistakes. But when I told her Dad had spent 2 days verifying everything, she went silent. Then she cried. Not the kind of crying that makes you want to comfort someone, the kind that feels like manipulation. She said she was sorry, that it was a mistake, that she'd explain everything. But she didn't. She just kept crying and apologizing, and I realized I was looking at a stranger. I told her to pack a bag and leave. She begged me to let her stay, to let her explain after Emma went to bed. I refused. I wasn't going to let our daughter see this. Victoria called her sister Amanda, who lived 3 hours away in Houston, and said she'd stay there for a few days. A few days. Like this was some minor argument we'd cool off from. I watched her pack through the bedroom doorway, numb. When she tried to hug me before leaving, I stepped back. I couldn't let her touch me. That night, I picked up Emma from school and took her for pizza. She's 8, bright as a wildflower, and twice as tough. She knew something was wrong immediately. "Where's Mom?" she asked, dipping a breadstick into marinara sauce. I'd prepared an answer. "Mom's visiting Aunt Amanda for a little while. Grown-up stuff. Nothing for you to worry about, sweetheart." She studied me with those sharp brown eyes she got from Victoria. "Are you and Mom fighting?" Kids always know. I smiled, trying to keep it light. We're working through some things, but you know what never changes? How much we both love you. She seemed satisfied with that. For now. The next few days were chaos. I hired a lawyer. Jennifer Kowalski, a family law attorney, is someone at my Rotary Club. She was sharp, no nonsense, and when I showed her the evidence, she didn't sugarcoat it. This is bad for her. Infidelity, embezzlement from a family business. If you want full custody and restitution, you'll likely get it, but it's going to be ugly. I told her to proceed. I wanted a divorce, I wanted my money back, and I wanted primary custody of Emma. Victoria called me 17 times that first week. I answered once. She was frantic and said she needed to explain that I didn't understand the full picture. I told her to talk to my lawyer and hung up. What was there to understand? She'd betrayed me in every possible way. Dad and I also filed a police report for embezzlement. The detective assigned to the case, a tired-looking guy named Ramirez, said financial crimes like this take time to investigate, but the evidence seemed solid. Then, 2 weeks after she left, Victoria disappeared. Her sister, Amanda, called me panicked. Victoria had left her house in Houston 3 days prior, saying she was meeting someone and would be back by evening. She never came back. Amanda had been calling and texting nonstop. Nothing. Victoria's phone went straight to voicemail. Her car was gone. I called Detective Ramirez. He said he'd look into it, but adults are allowed to go missing if they want to. Unless there's evidence of foul play, there wasn't much he could do immediately. I was furious and terrified in equal measure. Part of me thought she'd run because of the embezzlement charges, but another part of me, the part that had loved her for 13 years, worried something terrible had happened. I hired a private investigator. He found her car abandoned in a Walmart parking lot in San Antonio. No sign of Victoria, no sign of the man in the footage. It was like they'd both vanished into thin air. The divorce proceeded without her. In Texas, you can finalize a divorce even if one party doesn't show up, especially when there's documented abandonment. 6 months after that awful October day, I was officially single. The judge awarded me full custody of Emma, ownership of the house, and a judgment against Victoria for the embezzled funds. Not that I expected to collect. She was gone. The private investigator had hit dead ends everywhere. The police had moved her case to inactive status. She'd either run off with her lover or something worse had happened. I tried not to think about which option I preferred. Life moved forward, the way it does, whether you're ready or not. Emma adjusted better than I expected. Kids are resilient. She missed her mom, asked about her constantly at first, but eventually the questions became less frequent. I got her into therapy with a counselor who specialized in children dealing with parental abandonment. It helped. My dad stepped up in ways I'll never be able to repay. He picked Emma up from school on days I couldn't leave job sites. He made her breakfast on mornings when I was too exhausted to function. He kept the business running when I was barely holding myself together. Slowly, I rebuilt. I threw myself into work, into being the best dad I could be for Emma. I started designing again, really designing, not just managing crews. There is something healing about creating beauty from dirt and stone and living things. I took out a project for a community garden in East Austin, donated my time and materials. It felt good to give something back, to remember that not everyone is a liar and a thief. I even started dating again, cautiously. A teacher at Emma's school, Sarah, started up conversations at pickup. She was kind, funny, and easy to talk to. We went for coffee a few times. Nothing serious, but it felt like maybe eventually I could trust someone again. Maybe I could let someone in without waiting for the betrayal. Amanda, Victoria's sister, called every few weeks to check on Emma. She felt guilty, I think, like she should have seen the signs. I told her it wasn't her fault, and it wasn't. Victoria had fooled all of us. Then, on a humid afternoon in late April, 8 months after Victoria disappeared, Amanda showed up at my door unannounced. She looked wrecked. Pale, thin, like she hadn't slept in weeks. In her hands was a brown manila envelope, sealed with packing tape, my name written across the front in Victoria's handwriting. "She mailed this to me 2 weeks ago," she said, her voice shaking, "from a post office in El Paso. There was a note for me inside, telling me to give this to you. Marcus, she's dead." I made Amanda sit down, made her drink water. She was shaking so hard she could barely hold the glass. "What do you mean, dead?" I asked, my voice hollow. Amanda wiped her eyes. "The El Paso police found her body in a motel room. Overdose. Heroin. They identified her through fingerprints. I had to go identify her formally last week. I didn't know how to tell you, and then this package arrived." Victoria. Dead. I felt nothing. Then everything. Relief. Horror. Grief for the woman I'd once loved. Anger at the woman who destroyed us. It all crashed over me at once. But the envelope. I stared at it like it might explode. "Did you read it?" I asked. Amanda shook her head. "It's for you. But Marcus, there's something else. The police said she wasn't alone. A man was found with her. Derek Calloway. He's alive. He's in custody on drug possession and a bunch of other charges. The detective I spoke to said his name came up in connection with fraud cases across 3 states. Derek Calloway. I didn't recognize the name, but it had to be the man from the security footage, the one she'd run away with, the one who'd maybe gotten her killed. My hands were numb as I peeled open the envelope. Inside was a letter, pages long, in Victoria's handwriting. I started reading, and everything I thought I knew shattered all over again. The letter began with an apology, but not the kind I expected. She was sorry for what she'd put me through, for the lies, for disappearing, but she wasn't a willing participant in any of it. Derek Calloway hadn't been her lover. He'd been her blackmailer. 2.5 years ago, Victoria was at a work conference in Dallas, a seminar on small business accounting. She'd gone to the hotel bar after the sessions ended, had a few drinks, and woke up the next morning in her room with almost no memory of the night before. A week later, Derek contacted her. He had photos of her, unconscious in compromising positions, photos that looked consensual but weren't. He threatened to send them to me, to post them online, to destroy our family unless she paid him. She'd been terrified, ashamed. She started giving him money from our personal account at first, but it wasn't enough. He wanted more. He wanted ongoing payments. So she started skimming from the business, creating fake invoices, moving money in ways she thought wouldn't be noticed. She was trapped. And Derek escalated. He started showing up at the office after hours, forcing her to meet him, to be seen with him, to create the appearance of an affair. He said if she told anyone, he'd hurt Emma. He knew where Emma went to school. He knew our routines. Victoria had been living in terror for over 2 years, and I had no idea. The night I confronted her, she tried to tell me, but Derek had been texting her threats the entire time. He told her if she confessed, he'd take Emma. She panicked and ran to Amanda's. But Derek found her there, forced her to leave with him, told her he'd kill Amanda if she didn't. For months, he kept her moving. Motels, cheap apartments, always under his control. She managed to mail the letter from El Paso because he'd passed out drunk one afternoon. She wanted me to know the truth. She wanted to protect Emma, and she wanted me to forgive her. She ended the letter saying she didn't think she'd survive much longer, that she loved me and Emma, that she was so sorry. I read it 3 times before I could breathe. Victoria hadn't betrayed me. She'd been trying to protect us, and I'd thrown her out. I'd divorced her. I'd let her disappear into the hands of a monster, and now she was dead. I called Detective Ramirez immediately. He connected me with the El Paso investigators. I scanned and emailed Victoria's letter. Within 48 hours, Derek Calloway was charged with extortion, blackmail, sexual assault, and a list of other crimes I couldn't keep straight. The district attorney in El Paso told me Derek had been running similar schemes on at least 6 other women across Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. He'd drug them, photograph them, and bleed them dry financially while keeping them under his control through fear and violence. Victoria had been one of many victims. The DA also told me Victoria's death was being reinvestigated. The heroin in her system had been laced with fentanyl, a dose high enough that it was likely intentional. They suspected Derek had killed her when she became too much of a liability. He was now facing potential murder charges. I testified via video deposition, told them everything, gave them the security footage, the financial records, and Victoria's letter. I wanted him to rot. The trial took nearly a year. I attended every day I could, sitting in the gallery, staring at the man who'd destroyed my wife. Derek Calloway was 42, unremarkable looking, the kind of guy you'd pass on the street and forget. But in that courtroom, listening to the testimonies of the other women he'd victimized, I saw him for what he was: a predator, a sociopath. When the guilty verdict came down on all counts, including second-degree murder, I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. Victoria was still gone. Emma still didn't have her mother. Justice didn't bring her back. I sat down with Emma and told her the truth, an age-appropriate version, that her mom had been in trouble and was trying to protect us, that she'd loved Emma more than anything. Emma cried. I cried. We held each other in the living room for an hour. Grief is strange. You think you've finished with it, and then it comes back in a new shape. Amanda and I worked together to set up a scholarship fund in Victoria's name for women pursuing accounting degrees. Something good from something terrible. I also joined a support group for families affected by crime. It helped to talk to people who understood that specific kind of law. It's been 3 years since I opened that envelope. Emma's 11 now, thriving in middle school. She talks about her mom sometimes, with love and sadness, but without the confusion she used to carry. Therapy helped both of us. Sarah, the teacher, is still in my life. We took it slow, but she's been patient and kind, and Emma adores her. We're talking about moving in together next year. It feels right. Not a replacement for what I lost, but a new chapter, a good one. Brennan Landscaping is doing better than ever. Dad finally retired last year at 70, though he still calls me 3 times a week to check on projects. I hired a new office manager, someone Dad and I both vetted carefully. We've got systems in place now, checks and balances, things I should have insisted on from the beginning. Trust, but verify. It's a hard lesson, but a necessary one. I drive past that Wakeland Heights property sometimes, the one I was working on the day everything fell apart. The wildflower garden is thriving, the redbud tree is taller now, and the clients still send me Christmas cards. Life goes on. Beauty persists even in the soil of tragedy. I think about Victoria every day. I think about the fear she must have lived with, the isolation, the impossible choices. I wish I'd seen the signs. I wish she'd felt safe enough to tell me. But I also know that Derek Calloway was a master manipulator, and she did what she thought she had to do to keep Emma safe. In the end, she sacrificed everything for our daughter. That's the truth I hold on to. Some betrayals aren't betrayals at all. Some monsters hide behind ordinary faces, and some love stories don't get happy endings, but they still matter. Victoria mattered. Our life together mattered. And every day I make sure Emma knows that her mother was brave and loved her and fought for her until the very end. What would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments.